German in an office, they're a little bit more particular about it being done exactly correct.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
no room for that to change. And I saw this when Katrin and I first started seeing each other. We rode the train together, and at the time I had to print out my ticket, and it had the QR code or something on it.
Yeah.
And I went to fold it, and she said, do not fold it, and
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Der Kreative Flow. This is a bilingual episode with some German parts like intro, outro, and some brand recommendations in the middle. You are free to skip the German parts if your German is not good enough and if you are waiting for the interview with Mike Lowery. This interview will be held in English. Hi, schön, dass du genau auf diese Podcast-Folge getippt hast. Herzlich willkommen in einer neuen Folge von Der Kreative Flow. Mein Name ist Roberta und ich mache diesen Podcast seit über 7 Jahren und es gibt weit über 270 Folgen, die du dir anhören und seit einem Jahr zum Teil auch bei YouTube und Spotify ansehen kannst, also dann mit Video. Alles zu meiner Person und zum kreativen Flow, den ich seit 2019 als Plattform für Kreative gegründet habe und auch als Community betreibe, findest du als Links in den Shownotes. Und ein Blick in die Folgenbeschreibung lohnt sich immer, denn manchmal habe ich da auch kleine Geschenke für dich versteckt. In dieser Folge, auf die du dich mal wieder wirklich freuen kannst, spreche ich mit dem amerikanischen Zeichner Mike Lowery. Er erzählt dir, wie man Kreativität und Business als Illustrator oder Illustratorin unter einen Hut bekommt. Und jetzt geht's los.
Findest du das?
Der kreative Flow, ein Podcast für Kreativschaffende von Roberta Bergmann.
Braucht jemand Stifte?
Bevor wir mit dem Interview loslegen, möchte ich wie schon in der letzten Folge auf ein Flow-Event der besonderen Art hinweisen. Ich habe einen Community-Ausflug in die Niederlande geplant. Wir fahren am 18. September 2026 zum brandneuen Royal Talents Werk in Apeldoorn. Der Besuch vor Ort geht den ganzen Tag und wir werden eine Führung durch das Werk und Lager bekommen. Wir werden die Materialien näher kennenlernen, die Royal Talents für KünstlerInnen entwickelt und wir werden praktisch. Es wird einen künstlerischen Workshop im Experience Center von Royal Talents geben, an dem alle mitmachen können und wir beschließen den Tag mit vielen neuen Eindrücken und einer prall gefüllten Royal Talents Goodie Bag. Also wenn du jetzt sagst, wow, ich habe tatsächlich am 18. September Zeit und ja, ich will auch einmal mit Roberta einen kreativen Ausflug machen und ja, ich will mir auch unbedingt mal das Werk von Royal Talents anschauen und kreativ mit den tollen Materialien arbeiten, dann kannst du dabei sein. Ich habe noch ein paar freie Plätze, 20 Stück gibt es insgesamt, ein paar sind schon weg. Schau einfach mal in die Shownotes, da habe ich dir das Event verlinkt. Du findest dort alle weiteren Infos, unter anderem auch den 50% Rabatt auf das Ticket, den ich meinen Steady-Supportern mit dem Flow Community Aktionspaket geben kann. Das ist also auch ein Vorteil, wenn du mich bei Steady supportest und Teil der aktiven Flow Community wirst. Ich würde mich also sehr, sehr freuen, wenn du dabei bist. Wenn du auch Teil des VIP-Clubs und der Flow Community werden willst, was bedeutet, dass du kostenlos an meinem Kreativstammtisch teilnehmen kannst, Einblicke auf den geheimen Blog bei Steady und somit hinter die Kulissen erhältst, 17 Bonusfolgen hören kannst und am jährlichen Gewinnspiel teilnimmst, nicht zu vergessen, dass ich dir auch persönlich einen Brief schreibe, dann geh auf www.steady.de/derkreativeflow und supporte mich einmalig mit 5,50 € oder monatlich oder jährlich ab 5 Euro. Und wenn du noch mehr willst, dann schau dir auch mal mein Flow Community Aktionspaket an. Hier werden wir nämlich dann gemeinsam kreativ, zum Beispiel bei der Skizzenbuchreise oder der Schachtelkunst, oder wir machen eben Aktionen und Ausflüge zusammen, und ich habe noch viel mehr geplant, was in nächster Zeit dann auch noch veröffentlicht wird. Hab 1000 Dank für deinen Support, deinen monetären Support bei Steady. Das hilft mir wirklich sehr. Ja, und schon kommen wir zum heutigen Interview der Folge. Ich habe mich, wie schon gesagt, mit Mike Lowery online getroffen. Er hat richtig viele schlaue Dinge gesagt, die du heute erfahren kannst. Aber es war auch sehr lustig, denn Mike ist schon sehr komisch und spielt immer wieder auch mit seinem Humor, was ich äußerst sympathisch finde und was, glaube ich, auch seinen Erfolg ein bisschen ausmacht. Wir reden über Mikes kreative Reise, die Bedeutung von Skizzenbüchern, den Einfluss von AI oder KI auf die Illustrationsbranche und die Herausforderungen, mit denen IllustratorInnen und Kreative tagtäglich konfrontiert sind. Und du weißt, das ist eins meiner Lieblingsthemen. Und ja, deshalb wünsche ich dir jetzt einfach viel Spaß mit
Das Interview.
Welcome to the Der Kreative Flow podcast in the English version again. Today my guest is Mike Lowery, and let's say hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody. Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this has to be the English edition. But listen, my German, obviously, as you know, my German is perfect, or as we
Yes,
say
I
in
know.
German, perfect. But I don't want to show off. Okay, I don't want to show off how good it is, and I want to
Yeah.
stay humble.
Yeah, and we will see how bad my English is. So that's perfect. I'm always have the guest looking perfect and me looking like a full idiot. So
I
let's
assume that you
start.
also have some you have some filters on me also to make me
Yeah.
look, yeah, I get it.
Of
Thank you.
course, of course. My first question in my podcast is always the same. Who are you
Okay.
and what are you do for living? Please introduce yourself.
I would say probably for other people, this is a very easy question. Who are you? But now, who am I? Who am I? This is when I look inside of myself and I don't even know who I am. No, I am Mike Lowery. I'm an author. I'm an illustrator. I keep a sketchbook every day. I'm a teacher. I am a public speaker. But yeah, the thing that I'm primarily known for outside of my home, in my home, I'm known as like this dad guy. But outside, I think that I'm mostly known for, I make children's books.
Mm-hmm. How much kids do you have, or how many?
I have 2 kids. I have
Mm-hmm.
an 18-year-old who just left for
Ooh.
college.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an 8-year-old who is not in college yet. The 8-year-old has not been accepted into college yet.
Oh, what a shame.
Uh-huh.
And you have a German wife, don't you?
I do have a German wife. That's right. I am married to illustrator and author Katrin Wieler, who publishes books with belts. And she's been doing, she's absolutely one of my favorite. I'm saying one of, but the truth is she's my favorite illustrator, and she makes these incredible books. So I think that
Yeah.
those of you who all typically listen to this in German, you would be probably fairly familiar with her books.
Yeah, or with her drawings. Sometimes you
With her
don't know the
drawings.
name, but you know the drawings. And as you said, she's published books with belts. I thought, belts?
Listen,
You know,
there's
for
going to be
the
a running theme.
trousers?
Yeah, not a Goethe, but a
Ah.
see, I told you,
Oh.
German. But I want the listeners to know that you all are going to be hearing, if I say something in German, you're going to hear that it will be slightly wrong. But anyway, no, it's with Belts,
And
the publisher.
Gilberg, I guess.
Gilberg,
Belts
yeah.
and Gilberg, is
Yeah,
the
Belts and Gilberg.
publisher's name. Yeah. But back to you, maybe become back to your wife later. When do you start drawing? And why? Why do you start drawing? It's interesting too.
Yeah, so I think that this is an interesting question, and I actually talk about this a lot because one of the aspects about me doing children's books, I do visit a lot of schools and I talk with kids a lot. And this question, when did you start drawing, comes up a lot. And so I will say that I have an answer that I've thought about a lot over the years, which is there's this thing that a lot of people do when they're young, where they're drawing all the time, right? It's something that's really a classic way of spending time when you're young, and people are very creative and they're coloring and drawing and they're making up their own stories. My son is constantly drawing his own Pokemon cards or his own comics and telling his own stories. And there's this thing that happens to, most humans, that at some point you start comparing your drawings to other people and you start thinking that yours is not good or it's not right or it's not correct for some way. And I'm sure that I had that also, but I never stopped that stage. I never had a long phase where I wasn't drawing. So I really liked telling stories when I was young. I liked drawing my own stories. I liked coming up with characters. I am just one of the people that then later got very, very lucky. I feel incredibly lucky that I then got to keep doing that and then get to do it for a living. So,
And when you start, in the age of?
I mean, I was drawing when I was it's the way everybody's drawing when they're very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
And I can answer more. So there was never a point where I was not drawing. Answer more specifically that I started my illustration career, started getting actually jobs when I was around 19. I had some smaller things before that, but I illustrated a very, very small book back when I was 19 and I started. So yeah, I've just always really liked drawing and I never really had a point where I wasn't drawing.
And did you study illustration or graphic design?
I went to school in the 90s when if you wanted to make a living from art, everybody was saying that you needed to study graphic design. You needed to learn web design and graphic design. So I did go to school for graphic design. I actually worked as a graphic designer for a while, but I never studied illustration. But there's this thing that happened where I started realizing that I really liked adding in hand-drawn elements into my graphic design. So I started doing a lot of hand lettering and I started doing in drawings and then scanning in those drawings and trying to make my graphic design stuff look really messy. And if I designed a t-shirt, I tried to make it look, not perfect. And then slowly I started realizing that what I was doing was actually called illustration. And I also studied in school, not just graphic design, but I also studied painting and drawing. So I went to a very small school where we were able to take a lot of different types of art classes. And so I took my love of painting and drawing and my love of graphic design, and then and my love for storytelling, and slowly they turned into illustration.
I switched the topic a bit.
Okay.
Why do you think it's important to have a sketchbook? And when do you start your sketchbook routine?
Yeah, so I think that keeping a sketchbook and I think that you know this because we met a few months ago, and I was talking a lot about a sketchbook at the time. And I do keep, as you know, I keep a sketchbook every day. It's a very important part of my process. It's how I found my style and the things that I like to draw. It's where I come up with all of my ideas. All of that started back in 1998. I kept a sketchbook when I was younger than that, not every single day, but I did keep a sketchbook. My grandmother was
When
an
you were
artist.
born?
Uh,
When you were born?
Yes, the day that I was born, I was holding a sketchbook in my hand,
No,
and
that's not what I
I
meant.
was,
Which year?
oh, I see, I see. I was born in 1980.
Ah,
So I was born in 1980.
so I'm the
And
older
then,
one.
oh, interesting. Folks, you've reached the portion of the podcast where we just are talking about our ages. It's funny. It's funny that you
No,
asked that
no,
because
but I wanted to know when you get your first sketchbook. So you said 1998, and I try to
to do the
think,
math. So I would have been
yeah,
18,
18. Okay.
but that's not when I got my first sketchbook. That's when I started keeping a sketchbook every day. It was
Okay.
1998.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Before
that's a
that, I
long
would draw.
time. Yeah.
It's I've been pretty good about it. I've not
Yeah.
done it all the time, and I took, there were some windows, the dark years,
The
where I
dark
wasn't
years
doing
of
it as
Mike
much as I should.
Lowery.
The dark years of Mike Lowery, which is the name of this episode, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. You nailed it. I will
the dark years of
name
Mike
it.
Lowery.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
have to write it
my
down.
grandmother was an artist, and I would go visit her, and we would draw in sketchbooks, and it really stuck with me. I really liked it, but I didn't start keeping a sketchbook regularly until I was in college, when I was in university.
Lots of people aren't able to use the sketchbook properly. They don't find the routine. A lot of people tell me I started the sketchbook, but now I don't use it anymore. I have plenty of started ones, but never finish one. A lot of the time, this is because they are being afraid of something, of
For sure.
being bad or to mess it up. Somebody could see it. What advice do you give these persons who are not yet have a sketchbook routine?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. And I would say, off the top of my head, I would say, I would think maybe first about what your goal is with it. And the goal for me, if I'm suggesting to someone starting out with a sketchbook, I would make your goals very small. Simply spending a little bit of time each day in the sketchbook, make that your first goal. It can be something very, very small, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Set a timer, and if the timer goes off and you're having a good time and it feels nice and comfortable, keep going. The problem is that sometimes people set goals for themselves, and I think a good example is if you're going on a trip. Okay, if you're going to take a nice trip, let's say to some very luxurious city like Hanover, Germany, and thank you. So let's say you want to take it's a very far trip for you, right, to go to Hanover. But
Yeah.
no, let's say you're taking a trip to Japan, and you've always wanted to go to Japan, and finally you're going to take a week and a half. That's American style vacations. Our trips are always like a week. And then whenever I talk to Europeans, they're like, it was a very short vacation. We could only go for 2.5 months.
Okay.
But anyway. No, but let's say you're taking this trip to Japan. One of the types of goals that someone will set they will say, I would like to keep a travel sketchbook. And then they set this goal for themselves that they're going to record everything about it, everything that they do, everything that they ate. They're going to basically write a travel guide all about Japan and their experience and their feelings. And it's too
Okay.
hard. What happens is that people will eventually, inevitably, they will get behind on some of those tasks. They won't fill out enough. They'll start feeling like they're behind, and then they won't do it at all. They might do 1 hour the entire time that they're there. Whereas really for me, it happens. And this is
Yeah.
very, very typical. And so what I say is, if you're going to start a sketchbook, now there's a couple of different types of sketchbook that you can keep. Maybe it's just drawing. Just set 5 minutes, a 5-minute goal, and really spend 5 minutes, just sit down, and maybe you draw something, and it can be whatever's right in front of you, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. And the more that you try to edit it, the more you try to think of what it can become. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this for a month, and then I'm going to post all of the drawings on Instagram, or I'm going to make a small book, that's called A Month in My Life, and it's going to have all these feelings and emotions. Maybe that'll happen, but it's also really, really hard. And so instead, try to focus on just a little bit of time. Now, the next big suggestion that I would make.
Roberta Bergmann empfiehlt.
Kennst du das Gefühl, wenn ein leeres Skizzenbuch vor dir liegt und irgendwie gleichzeitig auch alles möglich ist damit und du dich dann doch nicht traust, anzufangen? Genau darüber möchte ich heute mit dir sprechen, über Skizzenbücher und vor allem über die Frage, wie man wirklich eine Skizzenbuchroutine entwickelt, die Spaß macht und einen dran bleiben lässt. Ein Skizzenbuch ist nämlich viel mehr als nur Papier zwischen zwei Buchdeckeln. Es ist ein Denkraum. Es ist Experimentierfläche. Es ist Ideenspeicher und manchmal auch einfach ein Ort, an dem man ohne Druck kreativ sein darf. Und genau darum geht's, den eigenen Zugang zu sich und seinen Ideen finden, ganz ohne Perfektionismus. Ich denke, das würde mein heutiger Gast Mike Lowery auch so unterschreiben. Und diese Folge wird unterstützt vom Royal Talents Kreativstudio und ich freue mich sehr darüber, denn auf der Website des Kreativstudios dreht sich alles genau um solche kreativen Prozesse, wie ich das gerade beschrieben habe, auf dem Blog und der Website findest du nicht nur tolle Ideen für Materialien, sondern vor allem Inspiration, Wissen und richtig gute Inhalte für alle, die ihre Kreativität weiterentwickeln wollen. Besonders empfehlen möchte ich dir 2 Blogbeiträge, die mich zum Thema Skizzenbuch inspiriert haben. Der erste Blogartikel heißt Skizzenbuch-Überblick und was ich daran so mochte, er holt dich genau da ab, wo du vielleicht unsicher bist. Also bei Fragen wie, welches Skizzenbuch passt eigentlich zu mir? Was ist der Unterschied zwischen diesen ganzen verschiedenen Papieren in den Büchern und wofür nutze ich welches Buch am besten? Das hat mir nochmal einen ganz neuen Blick auch auf meine eigenen Skizzenbücher gegeben, bei denen ich inzwischen immer mehr auf Format, Papiergrammatur, Papieroberfläche und Farbe des Papiers sowie auf die Verarbeitung achte. Denn nichts ist ärgerlicher als eine richtig gute Skizze auf dem falschen Papier oder eine Oberfläche, die sich nicht für den Stift oder die Farbe eignet, die du gerade verwenden willst. Ja, und der zweite Artikel, den ich hier noch empfehlen möchte, ist Skizzenbuch-Routine. Das war ja auch schon ein Thema, über das ich im Podcast gesprochen habe. Da geht es nämlich nicht ums perfekte Zeichnen, sondern einfach ums Dranbleiben, um kleine, machbare Schritte im Alltag und darum, wie man sich selbst auch den Druck rausnimmt und stattdessen wieder mehr Freude am eigenen kreativen Prozess findet. Wenn dich das anspricht, es gibt auch eine kostenlose E-Mail-Serie von Royal Talents vom Kreativstudio, die heißt Zwischen den Seiten. Den Link zu den beiden Blogartikeln und zu der E-Mail-Serie packe ich dir in die Shownotes. Und jetzt habe ich noch zum Schluss etwas richtig Cooles für dich. Gemeinsam mit dem Royal Talents Kreativstudio verlose ich nämlich einen Skizzenbuch-Jahresvorrat für eine Person. Und das sind 12 Skizzenbücher. Alles, was du dafür tun musst, schick mir bis zum 28. Juni 2026 eine E-Mail an viel Glück mit ue @derkreativeflow.de mit dem Betreff Skizzenbuch Jahresvorrat und schreib bitte auch deine Postadresse mit dazu. Ich drücke dir ganz fest die Daumen und sage nochmal ein großes Dankeschön an das Royal Talents Kreativstudio für den Support der heutigen Folge.
Now, the next big suggestion that I would make is I use my sketchbook a lot as my diary and journal. And another big thing that I suggest is, and there's a million reasons that I do that, but one of the ways that I suggest starting that is not to write about your day, but just to make little notes, something that happened, something that you remembered. It can just be one little bullet point, one little note that just says, here's what I ate, or picked up the kid from soccer practice or, something like that. And then eventually you might have some things that come out of it. Maybe you'll start drawing those things. I have so many, I don't want to answer all of these questions at 45 minutes at a time, but I do feel like this is such an important thing to me that I do feel like that those are two really big ways of starting.
And sometimes I give the advice that you should start with a very simple sketchbook, not a very expensive one, not a very
For sure.
nice one.
Yeah.
Something that is not worth the paper maybe, but you
That's
can
right.
use it and don't think about, oh, everything must look good enough for this kind of paper or something.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the nicer the sketchbook looks, the harder it is to finish that sketchbook. I have been
That
keeping the same type.
I see a diagram with the two
Yes, for
curves.
sure. And it happens all the time. And I think that I am positive that there are people right now that are listening that have either themselves gone and thought, I'm going to start a new sketchbook habit. And they buy a beautiful, maybe it has like handmade paper, or
Yes.
something. And there's like gold around the edge or something. Or someone in your life has given you that type of sketchbook.
Mhm.
And I find it to be the hardest type of sketchbook to really get started. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree that it needs to be something simple.
I listened to some podcasts with you before for research, and you said something very interesting because I think it's very worthy for the audience. How can an illustrator find its clients? I know you have a good working method and it's quite the same as mine when it comes to book projects. Would you explain how you find your clients?
Yeah.
Not the portfolio way, it's the free project way maybe.
Yeah. So I realized starting out that I was taught to make a portfolio, and this is a typical way that an illustrator or an artist of any kind would make a portfolio, is that you are making projects for yourself that you like. And
Mhm.
what I realized is that I was primarily making artwork that I liked, that I wasn't really getting a lot of feedback from clients because they weren't really sure how they could use it. So I was making stuff that I liked. I was sending it to publishers or sending it to magazines and things like that. And I was getting a good reaction, or they were nice about it, but I wasn't getting assignments right away. And the thing that I realized pretty quickly, because I wanted people to start calling me back and I wanted to make a living as only making art, which is how I make a living now, is I only make art. And what I realized is that the primary goal of a portfolio is not to get an art director to say, this is good art. The goal is that you want them to say, I know how I can use this art. This is useful. So you want them to like it. That's very important, but it's equally as important for it to seem useful. And so what I realized is that I needed to start making projects that were catering to those clients. So I needed to
Mhm.
start making stuff specifically for those clients. And so when I started looking at artwork and illustration stuff that I really liked, I started collecting types of projects that I liked. So not just the style of stuff that I really liked, but I started collecting things that would be things that I would like to work on, types of books, types of magazines. And then I made new portfolio pieces that specific client could use. So if I wanted to
Mhm.
do illustration work for an outdoor magazine, for example, I wouldn't just send them a bunch of drawings of characters that I created for children's books. Instead, I would send them a couple of images that look like they would fit in an outdoor magazine. And it just made it
Mhm.
significantly easier for that client to understand how my work can be used. And I want to say something quickly about AI, which is something that I never just offer to talk about because I find it exhausting and frustrating and really, of course, we hate it and it's sad and depressing. But here's what I'm going to say, that the clients right now, the clients
Mhm.
that you would want to work for are the people that are in the position to hire artists and illustrators. They are also artists and illustrators and writers themselves. And
Mhm.
so they are, for the most part, actively against using AI. So there are still a lot of available jobs and illustration projects to work on. And I'm not saying that there are not companies that are using AI, I'm talking about generative AI. There
Mhm.
are those companies that are doing it. I just think that those are the companies that we wouldn't want to be doing projects for anyway.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be smaller clients that are trying to do something for a restaurant that, and restaurant illustration work, those kind of projects can be really, really good. So I'm not saying because it's a restaurant, but I mean, it's the type of client. I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah. Please.
Years ago, I was approached by a restaurant and they asked me, they had seen an illustration that I had done of a firefly. And it was a restaurant. It was called something like Firefly or something. And they asked me if they could use that image as on their menu, if they could use it in their restaurant, if
Like
they
a
could use it
logo.
as a logo, but also as a mural and a painting. This has been a little while ago. I was in my 20s, and now everybody knows because you asked me to show my birth information on the podcast and to show my birth certificate and my Pass here for
Yeah.
your, listeners. Anyway, but so you can do the math on it. But I was in my 20s and I was incredibly flattered that they emailed, but luckily I had a head on my shoulders at that point and was already thinking about money and making a living. And I said, yeah, what's your budget? This is great. I would love to do it. And they said, oh, we don't have an art budget.
Budget? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, right. Exactly. They were like, well, we don't have an art budget. And he said, but if you're ever in Miami, I think it was Miami. I could be getting this wrong. If there's a restaurant called Firefly in Miami and it's not these people, then I do feel bad about it. But they said, and it was like 20 years ago. They said, if you're ever in Miami, I can make you a very great dinner. Did not take that offer because here's the thing.
Surprise.
That restaurant is going to spend, like $18,000 on like one bread mixer, like one dough mixer or whatever, commercial, and so it's not that they don't have the money for it. They don't prioritize it. These are the types of clients that, in my opinion, are going to be using. I did not mean to get off topic on generative AI, but I do think that those are the type of clients that are going to be doing it. And the art's not going to look good. People are not going to like it. And so I'm just trying to say that for people that are listening that are thinking like, okay, there's too many illustrators because I see so much illustration stuff on Instagram, or whole industry is collapsing. I just don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that it's difficult and I think it's sad and frustrating that this stuff is all happening. But I do still think that there is a possibility of making a living as an illustrator.
Yeah, I would say the same. And I would say maybe it's only a phase. I don't know if that's right. Eine Phase in German. It's only a small amount of time where AI is such a big trend and everyone try it out, and then we get used to it and get bored by it, and then maybe we wertschätzen heißt es in Deutsch, getting to know how
Like
worth
regulates.
yeah,
I see,
it will regulate, but everyone or a lot of people will recognize how what the worth of original art has. And these restaurants maybe don't know the worth of it and the uniqueness and the
Maybe. I hope so. I do feel like
yeah.
whenever I talk about AI, I do immediately picture someone listening. Someone has just stumbled on this podcast and it's, let's say 17 years from now, 18, and they're just like hearing us talking about AI and they're sort of like cracking up and they're like basically listening to it over some handmade thing, like they're like the buildings are all destroyed and there's helicopters over them, right? And they're like, oh, listen to them talking about
these stupid illustrators.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think I can only talk about what's happening right now. And I do feel like, I don't know that I feel like it's a phase. I think it's a permanent thing, but I think that our relationship with it will change and evolve. Yes, completely. I agree.
Yeah. We speaking of, I have something which I collected over the years, and it's very worthy for me, and I want to show you because I hope you recognize it. This is the first.
I'm going to say, how in the world, where did you get that? Oh, I do know where you got. Wait a minute. I think I know where this is from. Was it from a book fair?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
I
it.
told you already when we met
That's
in
right. I'm now
Buxtehude.
remembering it.
Yeah. That I
I
got
am now
these
remembering it.
two originals from the unknown illustrator Mike Lowery. I guess I paid €9 each or something like that, or
I
12
think you
maybe.
overpaid. You overpaid. It's too much. You
Of
could have.
course, it's only a bird. For all
Yeah.
the only audio listeners, I holding up a original drawing by Mike
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
bird which says "Let's never ever die." Okay, and this catches me. 2000, I don't know, 10 maybe,
Yeah,
2010.
that sounds right.
Could this
2009 or
be?
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this
I'm
is
just thinking.
I have this on my walls. This is in my kitchen because
Yeah.
it's said I'm really hungry, and this is on my living room. Let's never ever die. Okay. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, that's very flattering. I'm just now thinking of I was thinking initially because if it's €9 each, how you could have had a really nice meal, but I'm realizing now that near the Frankfurt Book Fair, it really you did that wouldn't have been enough for a good meal. So I think that you
No.
settled instead of eating,
Yeah.
you instead of getting a pretzel or something, you instead
Yeah.
settled for two pieces of art.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
very flattering. Yeah, it's very flattering.
A pretzel or a Bratklößchen. I always eat a Bratklößchen at the book fair.
We always go to the pommes truck that's out
Oh.
there with. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in case people are like, what are they talking about? So we met, I mean, this was in 2010, which you
Mhm.
reminded me when we saw each other in Buxtehude at the Frankfurt Book Fair. I mean, we were not married at the time. Katrin and I were not married, but we came and they did this thing for 1 year where they
Mhm.
asked illustrators if they were interested in showing in for one day in this very small market. And so
Only
Katrin and
one
I,
day?
we
Okay.
were only in it for one day,
Mhm.
and we sat at a table, and I came over, and we explored Germany and hung out, and then we were at the book festival for 2 or 3 days.
And did you look at the book fair? Because in Frankfurt, it's the international one, the biggest of the world, and you can meet a lot of publishers and
Yeah,
lecturers
we
and.
did.
Mhm.
We did actually, and something interesting, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn right now because Katrin is not here to say her story, but Katrin went the year before and had a meeting with her publisher. Certain publishers will allow you to do portfolio reviews, and
Yeah.
the Frankfurt Book Fair is where Katrin got her first big book contract. She had an entire book concept that she didn't just go and show art. She had a whole book concept that was ready to go, and she showed it at the book fair. Yes, we definitely did, and we actually went. We went last year also. Um,
Ah, okay. Me too, I guess. Yeah. Last year I was there too, but we didn't meet.
we did not see each other, and I did not have a table.
Ah, I know you didn't sign anything or if, there are these hours for authors and illustrators where you can sign your books. No.
No, actually, I did the opposite. I wore a disguise the entire time.
Okay, well, let me guess. What's the opposite of signing books? I don't know. What's the opposite?
Yeah, I
Trying to
guess the
get a
opposite would
contract.
the opposite, I guess, would be hiding. And no, 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 but I will say, and this is totally, I don't know if this is interesting for anybody listening, but I did run into a student of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I taught at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I
Mm-hmm.
have been gone from teaching I've been gone from teaching at a university for more than 10 years or so. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I ran into an old student of mine who was there because she had a book and she was meeting her publisher and she signed to do a contract. So it was very flattering to see a student of mine go on to make books.
Yeah.
So you're asking, why did we go? So primarily we went for two reasons. So one reason is that my wife did have a meeting with her publisher. And since my publishers are all based in the United States, yes, they are there, but
Which is it? Penguin?
So I've worked with a couple. So
Mm-hmm.
Scholastic and Penguin Random House and HarperCollins is a publisher that I'm working for a lot right now. Didn't have meetings there. I did see some, books there, but I primarily went to hang out with my wife and then also just to see other books that were being made
Mm-hmm.
and just, sort of be inspired from the book
Mm-hmm.
fair.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, speaking of a former student, I come to the topic that you are now teaching illustration, and you said that you teach it at university in Savannah,
Right.
but now you have your own program, and it's called Getting Paid to Draw. Would you explain how this program works and what it is? What's the content? What can the participants learn? What's the structure? I'm very curious.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to tell you how it started because then maybe it makes more sense. So
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned before that I had figured all these things out when I was kind of getting started and that I was sort of on my own. I didn't go to school for illustration. And then, all the schools that I went to, and even the schools where I was teaching, there was not a lot of emphasis on the business part of. So I made business a big part of whenever I could, I would talk about the business part of illustration. And it was always from the side of my personal experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I wasn't doing picture books, I mean, I've been working on picture books for, I mean, around 15 years now, 20 years now, maybe. I'm trying to think of the math on this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But for a long time, I've been working on picture books. But while I was doing those, I was also doing things like greeting cards and paper products and journals, um, um, like ad campaigns and food trucks and things like that. And the reason I was doing all that is because I really wanted to make a living as an artist. I was really trying to see what I
Yeah,
really liked and things. Anyway,
yeah.
along the way, I would kind of do things wrong and I had to figure stuff out. So when I
Can
left
I
teaching,
ask one
yeah,
question,
of
please?
course.
The picture book business in Germany is very yeah, bad paid. Can you say so? It's not paid very good. Is it the same in the US? So that in the great field of illustration, children's books, the less paid jobs.
I think that it depends. I make my full living from making picture books.
Oh.
So that is I do also teach. And so there's other things that I do for income, but we'll say, I'm going to try and say this in a way, but those are things that I do that are extra,
Mm-hmm.
because I like to do it. But I don't need to teach to make a living. I can do
Okay.
picture books, but I also am working a lot and I typically have a few projects going at a time and I've been doing it for a very long time. So I still get royalties from older books and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so when I talk about making a living from picture books, I also say that it is also this thing that took a long time to build up enough books that I had created to where I was teaching at the same time as I was getting started
Mm-hmm.
as a picture book illustrator, and I was teaching for a very long time. I taught for a very long time. 15 years I taught, and the reason I left teaching to begin with is because I got to where I was working two full-time jobs. It was too much. I loved teaching. Had a really hard time leaving. And luckily, around the time that it was getting to be too much, I got an incredibly terrible boss, but someone that was sort of over me at one of the schools where I
Mm-hmm.
was.
Okay.
And she was very difficult anyway. So it made it much easier to step away
To
from it. It was
leave.
perfect
Okay.
timing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
made it
Yeah.
a lot easier to leave. The way the class works is that then what happened was that after a few years after leaving teaching, I really started missing that part of it. So I
Mm-hmm.
started taking questions online about people were asking these questions, and sometimes they were very big questions. And I'm sure you've seen it. You brought up the question on the podcast about keeping a sketchbook, and I feel like we could talk about that for 3 hours because there's so many different parts of it, so much to talk about. And the business side of making a living as an artist, it became one of these things that I realized I just wanted to do a lot of different podcast posts and things about it. And then I realized the easiest way to do it was I created a class and over 8 weeks, I talk about how to build a portfolio. I don't talk about, we're not all doing the same style or something like that. It's not a drawing class. It's not a Photoshop class. It's using the stuff that you know how to do and how you make art to make work that a client would be interested in looking at. And so we talk about it. And then over the 8 weeks, it's you watch videos and you make all of the projects at your own pace so that there's not this weird pressure and stress of falling behind. And people will say to me all the time, well, oh, what if I fall behind because I have a full-time job? I'm just like, everybody no one is just sitting there only being able to do this. So I wrote it with this idea in mind of somebody that was working another job full-time. Anyway, and then over those 8 weeks, we also interview people like illustration agents and literary agents and other illustrators, editors, art directors, people from anywhere in the industry to say their perspectives and what they look for in a portfolio and things like that.
And are these interviews live or is it on tape as well?
The interviews are live. So I do have some pre-recorded ones from the earlier years that we've talked with those people, right, and asked if we can reuse them so that people can watch them later. And so we do have some from people from, art directors from magazines and things like that are recorded. But it happens in the spring. And then over those 8 weeks, we do have live ones, which is great too, because then people can directly submit questions and ask these questions. And also throughout the whole, this is something that I really, really like, is that throughout the whole course, we have a document set up where people can submit a question that comes up that then I can read those every day to where I can collect them. And then when I get to the chapter, so like a topic like agents. So the topic of illustration and literary agents comes up a lot. And so then in one of the live sessions, I can collect all of that stuff and I can talk about my history. I used to have an illustration agent and I don't anymore. Now I have a literary agent because I primarily do books. And I talk about how you find an agent, do you need an agent? What's the point? What do they do? What do they what do they not do? So I can save all those questions. And then we talked about self-publishing for a really long time last year. I self-published a book a couple of years ago. And then I did recently publish a new book. It's just a personal project of mine. And
is it the sleepwalking novel?
That's right. It's called, I have a stack of stuff in front of me, so I'm going to hold something up. It's this book.
Hold it up.
Creature.
Nocturnal creature. Yeah.
Nocturnal creature. So I talked a lot about it, and I even talked about where I get stuff printed and things like that. It's been really interesting because we get people from all over, and sometimes questions will come up. Well, they'll say, well, I heard about this illustration organization that's in the United States. I wish we had something like that in Germany. And I'll go, actually, there's the illustration organization that's in Germany. So I think, and we've got people from all over the world. So it's great to see how they can feed each other. Oh, this is where I get stuff printed. These are the shows that I like to go to and that kind of stuff. It's been great.
Yeah. It's a whole network with informations you can provide. Yeah. And how many participants do you have in these 8 weeks? How many people join?
Do you mean students or do you mean how many? It varies every single year. So on each of the live sessions, there might be 80 people.
Yeah.
There might be 150. We usually keep it. I only, when I make the class available, I keep the window open pretty short. I'm one person and I have one person that helps me from the whole thing. I have one person that helps me, that she's helping me schedule things and, making sure that the guests all know when the Zoom sessions are and things like that. So we keep that window kind of short because we can only have so many people per year in the class. But then in terms of guests, we typically have anywhere between 6 to 8, sometimes more people. We've had people from the New York Times. We've had people from Wired magazine, someone from Frankie magazine. And so it's been, yeah,
Very
we've had a
cool.
lot of good
Yeah.
guests.
Yeah. Now your program is closed. I saw on your website, but you have a waiting list, and next year it starts again, and maybe some of my listeners would have a look to it
Yeah,
too.
I would love it.
So I
Yeah.
put it in the show notes. Oh, I saw at your website that you have a blog where you write and draw, and there was a headline that you quit Instagram, and I was interested if you really did this, but I don't think you did this. Don't you? Did you?
Well, I didn't change. I didn't quit Instagram in the sense that I deleted my account or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I did change my relationship with Instagram, and so this started a few years ago. Actually, I started really thinking about Instagram and social media and the way that it works and the way that it doesn't work. And it's funny how often, and this seems like a really easy thing to say, but how difficult it becomes. But it's interesting how often, if you sit back and you think to yourself, what do I want from something? And you can really make notes and list things out. Like if you feel frustrated with work and then you start thinking, what do I like and what don't I like and what's good and what's bad and what's works. And I started doing that with social media because I started, like everybody, this is not something new, but I started getting that feeling, right, of constantly looking at other people's work and feeling frustrated and feeling like I wasn't producing enough work or I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
getting the right type of jobs and stuff like that. And something interesting happened a few years ago where I had been working on a book project for 2 years. It was a concept for a book, and I wasn't working on only that. I was working on other projects, and I was slowly thinking about this book project. And finally, it was ready, and I pitched it, and I got a contract from my dream client. It was
Mm-hmm.
exactly the publisher that I wanted. It was the contract that I wanted, and was really excited and very, very thankful for it. And then later that day, or I think it was actually the next day, I saw a project that another illustrator was working on that looked very interesting. It looked like a
Mm-hmm.
great project. And I felt bad that I felt like I didn't get enough work. And I had to step back and say, why do I feel like this right now? I just got
Mm-hmm.
this assignment that I've been wanting, and now I'm seeing something that someone else is doing, and I'm thinking, oh, I wish that I was in their position.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
everybody does it. And
Yeah,
I was really
everybody
annoyed.
knows. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was frustrated with myself for that. And so what I did was I backed up and I started really thinking about Instagram and social media. What do I want from it? And how am I using it now? And how can I use it differently? And so I'm going to kind of answer this as short as possible by saying what I did was I started writing a blog post, a journal entry about it. And it's
Mhm.
not the one that you're thinking of. That one I can talk about in a second, and I ended up making a book that's called Instagram for Illustrators. It's free. It's not something that I'm charging for or something like that, but that's on my website. And I made it free because I realized that a lot of people are feeling the same way and they're feeling frustrated. And so it's a thing that you can download. And it's funny because it looks like it's going to teach you how to build a following on Instagram, but it's really not that. It's really more geared toward how to get your work to connect to the right people and not
Mhm.
just, I don't know. But the post that you're talking about, which I do hope that people will read it too, that's something that I started in a sketchbook, and it's called My Alternative to Instagram. And the reason I wrote that is because it was a comic that I drew, because everyone started talking about these alternatives to Instagram, how they were going to
Mhm.
start using something different for Instagram, but nobody was really talking about what they wanted out of this alternative. They were only talking about an app or a platform and not, and they were saying how it was better, but they were not saying what's good about it.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a really, really interesting thought. And so for me, I realized that my personal alternative to Instagram was really, I have it in front of me. I'm just going to show you this thing that I got. I got this thing called
What's
Brick.
this?
It's if you're just listening to the audio version of this, it is a small gray plastic box, And what this thing does is, if I tap my phone to it, it completely blocks any social media. You choose it, and it blocks any kind of social media and any news sites or other sites that you're frequenting too much. With the news now, but I'm not constantly checking every 18 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it has absolutely changed my relationship with my phone. It's changed my relationship with, and look, I'm not sponsored by this company. I should be. No, but I'm not sponsored by it. And there's other versions of it. This is the thing that's really worked for me.
Okay.
Because I still like to carry my phone because I like having my camera. I have these children that are growing up, right? So I still want to capture these kids. And I also, we'll go for a walk.
You're just a human, and then you have a look at Instagram or
And so
any other apps. Yeah.
Right. And so now I completely I'm not
Locked out.
constantly. Yeah. And it's weird. And I will say it's embarrassing to admit that at some point that you're like, oh, I am checking this thing too much, or I'm looking at this, but everybody does it now.
Everybody does it.
Very difficult thing to get out of. And I found the thing that works for me.
Yeah. Very good. Good advice. What is it called, this gray box?
It's called Brick.
Brick.
If you use hashtag Mike Lowery, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not sponsored.
And the affiliate link is you get 10% off.
I'm going to tell you the truth. If you end up buying one of these, they send you an affiliate link automatically. Then you get a certain amount. And I'm going to tell you, this is totally true. I deleted that stuff because I didn't want, if I start telling people about it, I don't want them to think that I'm some affiliate. So I deleted it so that I wouldn't get any affiliate stuff from it, so that people would know that I'm just talking about it because it works for me.
So you never did affiliate at all? This is the devil for you, affiliate, or what do you mean with it?
I just mean with this specific thing.
Okay.
I mean, I've been an affiliate I have friends that teach Photoshop classes and things like that. I would be an affiliate for that. I'm just saying, for this specifically, I wanted it to be clear that I'm not speaking because this is something that I'm getting money on the back end for. And that this is just something that just works for me. And honestly,
just good advice from a friend.
It's just good advice from your dear friend, your best friend, Mike Lowery.
Yes. Okay, I don't put it in the show notes. You didn't hear anything about the brick.
Yeah, well, you heard it, but but I'm not getting a dollar on the one every time you buy it or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so you are still on Instagram. That's fine. Congratulations. You have a lot of followers, and I'm a little bit shy to ask this question because I ask almost everyone who has so much followers. But I'm very curious about it. When was the time these followers started to grow so fast? Was there any specific point?
I know exactly when it was, but let me see. But in terms of years, I wish that I had a better use of my brain to recall years, but I can tell you how it happened. So I was doing years and years ago, I started doing a series of drawings just for myself, where I was drawing some weird fact every day. Just something that I would read and I would research, and I would draw that weird fact every single day. And I started posting those weird facts. This was at a stage where you could still make a post that was not you dancing.
Yeah, no reel.
There was no reels yet, nothing like that. But so I started posting those every day. And I was just making them for myself because I had a goal where I wanted to practice more hand lettering. Anyway, so I was drawing these weird facts every day. It got picked up by a couple of larger news outlets. And now I'm not even really sure. The Guardian, maybe. And yeah, so some newspapers picked it up. A newspaper, like the newspaper, like BuzzFeed. But some websites picked it up. And then that started to grow in that way. And then I was very actively using Instagram at that time in a way that I think for that specific time, Instagram it was a great fit for it. And so I would make, I would make posts about my drawing process. I would do overhead videos of me. I don't know if those things still work. But that's sort of how it worked for me. But I started using Instagram at the time. It felt late, but I went
Okay.
to an illustration conference, and everyone just started. All of the art directors were saying they were looking for illustrators on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to make it very clear that if you don't end up looking at that book that I'm talking about, that I made about Instagram, if you don't look at that comic that I made, I'm not talking about abandoning something totally. I'm talking about your relationship with it. So I do still use it. For example, my wife Katrin and I posted something today about we're going to Scotland next summer. We're doing an illustration retreat every year, and next year's is in Scotland. And we posted about the first week, and all of the rooms were taken. And so we had to open a second week. And so I posted something about that on Instagram.
Okay.
So I'm not talking about not using it at all. And I was recently, I went with a friend to Montana, and I was showing some images from that. I'm talking about using Instagram in the way that you are keeping your phone always on you, and then all the downtime in your day, you're flipping through Instagram. That's the part that I feel like is not healthy.
Yeah. How do you handle the amount of work? I see all the things you do, and I think it's a lot of work and a lot of projects. You talked about your books, you talked about teaching and the program, you talked about the retreat. I know for a retreat you have to organize a lot of things. You mentioned that you have already one person who helps you. Is this Mandy?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's Mandy. But how you are preventing yourself from getting a burnout, or had you already one in the past, or how stressful is your kind of work, or your amount of work?
I think so. This is a great question, and I think it's not really necessarily something that I get asked about often, but I like that we can talk about it. So I want to say something about burnout before I answer the full question, because I'll talk about my experiences with it. I There are variations of burnout, and we had the opportunity to see Marlus speaking about burnout. And if you're someone who's listening and you have not heard Marlus speaking about, I'm sure you can put that in the show notes or something about burnout.
I have Marlos in the podcast too.
Perfect. So, yeah.
So we can link this.
Yes. And so I think that that's great. And her way of breaking down burnout is so thorough and so full that I could never compare to, and actually her level of burnout and her experiences with it are so different from mine that anything that I will say, I would like to clarify that I'm not speaking from any sort of medical advice or anything like that. Here's what I'll say. I can't talk about burnout. I have had windows where I have felt very tired and very unmotivated, which is very different from like clinical burnout, but it is a form of, I don't want to say burnout, but you see what I'm saying. But I've had these moments where I've been very exhausted.
Yeah, but Malo said these are the first signs for a burnout. So
yeah, so I think that, yes, absolutely. And so that's something that I have to really stay on top of. And so here are some, in a general sort of way, there are a couple of things that I do to manage the amount of work that I do work on. And I do stay fairly busy. And, but here are I would say a couple of things that I've done that have really helped, which is number one, I am a big scheduler. I keep a schedule and I keep lists. And what that does is there's a thing about keeping lists and keeping a schedule. And I'm talking about a very tight, well, not tight, but a clear schedule of what I will be working on at what time. If I sit down and I have 18 tasks that I need to do and I don't know what's the most important, I will not get anything done. And I feel very stressed, very anxious. I'm unable to complete very small tasks. However, if I have all of my tasks broken down into very small pieces, then it makes it significantly easier for me to then move forward with it. That's more difficult when the tasks are creative. So the hardest part of my entire job from everything that I do is the portion where I'm writing. Writing is I did not go to school for writing. I learned writing later and I have always written, but I went to school for drawing. And for me, if I'm working on a book project, let's say 90% of the project is the writing and the sketches and the very idea generating the rough part. And 10% is making the final art. And that's not the same for everybody, but that's my process. Is that to me, that is the easiest part. I can put on a really great Creative Flow podcast and I can see how many of the words in German I understand. And no, but I can put on a podcast, I can put on a show maybe and just listen to something, an audiobook. And it's easy and it's relaxing, but the writing part is difficult, which is why I even have to put onto a schedule windows for creativity, windows for allowing myself to do those things. So that is kind of one of the things that I do. And that also makes it easier for me. The reason that I'm able to keep many projects moving is because children's books take a very long time. As you can imagine, it takes a year, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but they come in stages. So if I'm working on a picture book, there's typically a point where I turn a part of the project over and I'm waiting for feedback. And while I'm waiting for feedback, I can now fill in that time with some other types of parts of the process and parts of a different project. And so this is something that I think that some people have a really hard time thinking about, but I am typically pitching my next project or a couple of projects down the line while I'm in the middle of a book project, which sounds like, oh man, now aren't you exhausted? It's like, well, not really, because I'm working on those things while the other thing is in a little bit of a pause.
It's like a project plan, so a master plan. Yeah.
That's right.
And often in project planning, it's called milestones. So you have to break down the project into pieces, like you said, and then set milestones you get easy, and then from milestone to milestone, you finish the whole project.
Right. And that
And
doesn't always work. In an ideal world that works, but sometimes project timelines change and sometimes things take longer. And then sometimes you just feel tired. And I feel like one of the advantages in the work that I do is that my entire art studio I can travel with it. I primarily I carry two in terms of getting final work done. Of course, I carry my sketchbook with me, but I carry an iPad with me and I carry my laptop with me all the time, which means that I can also do a little bit of work if I'm traveling that will then work toward, making things easier later.
yeah,
Hope that I don't want somebody to hear that the wrong way, because I'm not saying, oh, if you go on vacation, if you're out with your family, you need to be working. But part of our, as we mentioned earlier, I'm married to this German lady, this incredible German illustrator lady. And so part of that means we're traveling to Germany often. And if I was not working at all, I would have a really hard time keeping caught up with work and stuff. So
do you ever felt like a disbalance between teaching and making your own art? Because I was also teaching at the university and making my own art at the same time. And later on, when I wasn't at the university anymore, like you, I have also a program where I teach my students. And in this time, I felt, oh, I have less time for myself, for my own art. I'm now an advisor for making art, but I'm making less. Do you feel sometimes a disbalance, or are you balanced in all these kind of projects?
In that particular way, I feel fairly balanced. I think to
Mhm.
me, because I like talking about illustration stuff, doing things like this is an easy part of my day because it's all
Mhm.
things that I'm very happy to talk about and I feel excited to talk about it. And so there's an aspect of when I'm teaching the class, it's a lot of meeting up and live things, and I'm learning, I'm getting inspired from the
Mhm.
student work and other things like that. And so the only time it ever feels not balanced is that there
Mhm.
is a window where I have to get the word out about that class, and sometimes that's just not the type of work. That's not my preferred type of work, but it's important because then people that I never say that this is the perfect class for every type of artist. I always make it very clear. This is what we do. This is what it is not. And then this is what it is. I have to get the word out. And that means,
Mhm.
doing a lot more, the type of emails that are, uh,
Marketing.
that feel more marketing, and I try to
Yeah.
stay incredibly like using like I speak the way that I speak, and I don't try to make it sound like, "Hey, have you been daydreaming?" I don't want it to seem
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
something that you get rich overnight. That's not what it is. We're just talking
Yeah.
about the business. So that part to me always I'm always ready for that part to be over, but once the class starts,
Mhm.
it's me talking with people who like the same kind of things. So last year, for example, we had Jana Marishima, who came and spoke, and she's an illustration agent who works
Mhm.
primarily on kids' graphic novels. And if you know
Mhm.
anything about me, if you can guess, I love kid graphic novels. Like if this is
Yeah.
a thing that like you can probably guess from the way that I draw, humor, and things like that. And so I did feel like if I am then spending an hour and 20 minutes with someone like that,
Yeah.
talking
Of course.
illustration, I just leave it feeling incredibly excited. In that way, I'm going to say one quick thing, which is there was one thing where our family vacation this year, our big, like our, not like our big family vacation this year. I had a child, as I've mentioned, who went to college. She was about to leave for school. As her graduation thing, our big thing this year was we did take a family trip to Japan, and it happened to land directly over one of those weeks of the class. And I felt like there was one moment I did feel like this is a little much, but we were able to, well, I got nervous because I did one of the live sessions from Japan, and it was
Yeah.
like 1 o'clock in the morning in Japan. And I was like sitting in the
Oh.
dark, like talking, and I loved it. I had a good time, but I got really, really worried that we wouldn't have internet connection and
Yeah, of course.
everything wouldn't work. Everything worked out great.
Where were we? No burnout. Very good. You are in balance. Very good.
I want to,
Next.
let's go back. Let's talk about burnout.
Yeah.
Let me say one more thing about burnout,
Okay.
but I don't want to make it sound like these things are foolproof and that they always work, because I absolutely feel illustration, making books, these are my childhood dream projects, and they are still a job. And there are still
Mhm.
points when it adds up and it feels like a lot of work
Mhm.
and it feels hard or exhausting. And then you feel bad because you're thankful, but then also tired. I do think that sometimes I have to actively find ways of resetting and finding this place for my brain to be in a good
Mhm.
spot again. I have not had what I would consider to be clinical burnout, but I have had these early stages of burnout to where I've not been very motivated and it
Mhm.
feels really difficult to be working on something. So,
Mhm. Okay. Another question, which is not related to the before question. Do you have a wish to come true in the future in relation to your creative work? Are there any wishes who wanted to be fulfilled by you?
yeah, sure. I would be interested in some of them are small and some of them are kind of in the
Mhm.
works, kind of like a wish makes it feel like it should be bigger. I've done a lot of books for kids. I've been working on a couple of projects that are geared more towards adults and people who want to just illustration stuff that's sort of playful, and it's full of information. But anyway, I think that I would like to, as my schedule allows, work on some of that stuff a little bit more. I have had some work that's been animated
Mhm.
and would love to do more the illustration part for animation and things like that. Sure, yeah. I think
But you don't want to animate yourself, so you would others do the animation?
I
Or
would not want to animate it myself. No,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
want, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And in some kind of movie, short film, or what kind of way? Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm not, I feel very happy and very thankful for the
Mhm.
stuff that I get to work on. So all of that feels kind of extra.
Yeah.
Movies, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to illustrate. Why not?
Do you know these augmented reality books, the illustrated books, which are starting to and animate or to run when you put your mobile phone over it? You know these kind of books?
I have seen some of that type of stuff. I want to say, look, maybe there's versions of it. I feel like a lot of the ones that I've seen, they don't hold my attention for very long.
Mhm.
Because I do kind of feel like, again, I'm not trying to seem like I'm totally against any kind of screens or whatever, but I do
Mhm.
feel like whenever it's happening, I always think like, I think I'm okay just sitting and reading this book. But yeah, sure.
Okay,
That
okay.
kind of stuff seems interesting.
I understand the screen part is not your thing in this scenario because
Maybe in that particular scenario. Yeah.
yeah. But if it's possible to have the animation before your eyes when you open the book without a screen between you and the book, this would be okay?
So you're describing something from like a wizard universe
Yeah.
where what if there was a newspaper that was moving, and what if you were half wizard, half human, um, and you lived under the stairs? I like it. That's a great wish.
Yeah, it was an very serious question.
I
You
understand that.
didn't answer.
I think I did answer. I don't know. Let's say I don't know, but I will say that I was talking more of like animating for like a short show or
Hmm.
maybe a
Okay.
movie.
Okay. Good. What is the best advice you get from a mentor or a colleague? Maybe not the best, but one of the best you remember?
Sure. I have a lot of pretty good advice over the years. I've been thankful and lucky to have some good mentors. I can think of two off the top of my head, which I'm sure I
Mhm.
could think of more. One of them I remember the wording exactly, and then the
Mhm.
other one it's more of the idea that the person was telling
Mhm.
me. So I'll tell you the vague one first, which was years ago I was doing some books with this company called Workman, and
Mhm.
I do a calendar with them every year. I did a series of books with them, but I was talking with an art director there, or an editor there. His name is
Mhm.
Daniel Nayeri. He is an author. He is an award-winning, big time, like a great author who left publishing to do his own books. But way back in the day when he was still at Workman Publishing, he sat down with me and he really talked about, he said to me, I was pitching a project that I thought they would want. It was
Mhm.
a really specific type of project. And he said something, he said, I like this idea. And he said, do you keep a list of dream projects? And I said, I
Mhm.
do actually. I do keep a list of, I make notes of dream projects. And he said, I want to hear those ideas. Tell me those ideas and let's talk about if one of those would work. And I told him one of the ideas and he said, let's do that. Let's do that project. And that conversation, he didn't offer the contract right at that moment, but what he did was he started really talking to me about storytelling in general. And it's funny because now he's gone on to he made a book about storytelling,
Mhm.
and I think it's actually called How to Tell a Story. I hate to get the title wrong. He later went on. I thought he was just giving me this advice, and now I realize he's telling other people, which seems kind of rude. But he really kind of opened my eyes in terms of the way talking about storytelling. But So that's one more vague example,
Mhm.
but I'll give you a very specific example. When
Mhm.
I was a senior in college, I would have been maybe 21 at the time. If I'm doing the math right on that, 21. I had a teacher that called me to the side. We were all about to graduate. I was making a lot of art. And he said, and look, I know how this sounds right now. I want everybody to know I did not come on here to like talk about, teaching, all this teaching stuff that I do. But he called me to the side and he said, have you ever thought about teaching? And I had not thought about teaching at all.
Mhm.
And he told me, that teaching is great because you can still do your art on the side and you make a salary, you get health insurance, which is something that we Americans have to think a lot about, and you get summers off. And so he pulled me to the side and he said, have you thought about that? And I said, no. And then after I graduated, I started applying for some teaching positions because this guy said it. And my first teaching job ever, was the result of that conversation with that guy. So
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
great advice, and I'm
Yeah, yeah. It was life-changing and life-saving
yeah,
for yeah,
that's exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I have only one question left, and
Okay.
maybe
Then it's got to be a good one.
yeah, it's the best one, and
Okay.
maybe it's gonna be a cliffhanger for my listeners. Maybe it's bonus content. So here's the question. You mentioned before, we talked about it, that you have a German wife. What do you like about the German customs and habits? Do you know some? And what do you like and what do you don't like? Or what do you don't understand?
Okay. What do I like and what do I not like? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm going to start by saying, I'm not going to say what I don't like, but I'm going to say something that's a little different.
Mhm.
Is if you have to deal with if you're going to do some paperwork, for example, at like, not the embassy, but if there's, we had to do some paperwork when my
Mhm.
wife changed her name and when we got
Mhm.
married. And German in an office, they're a little bit more particular about it being done exactly correct.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
no room for that to change. And I saw this when Katrin and I first started
Mhm.
seeing each other. We rode the train together, and at the time I had to print out my ticket and it had the QR code or something on it.
Yeah.
And I went to fold it and she said, do not fold it, and my wife is not like this. My wife is really easy to get along with.
Easy. Yeah.
I like her a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you some things that I really like. Okay.
Mhm.
Here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Of course, Spargelzeit, right?
Ah, yeah.
Listen. I didn't know that someone could love white asparagus as much as, and no, I like, what if it's only food? Pfefferlinge. But anyway, no. So I have totally adopted. I am
Uh-huh.
now mostly German because
Yeah.
I wear house shoes now.
Oh, but the Japanese have house shoes too.
Right. I'm not comparing Germans to every country in the
Okay,
world.
okay.
I'm
Fair enough.
comparing it mostly, yeah,
To the
okay. Yeah,
Americans.
mostly to Americans and the ways
Yeah,
that
okay.
I have changed now having a
Okay, you have house shoes. You love the Spargelzeit?
Mhm. I
I
want to
I
say
I d-
you summing it up right now makes it seem like I've not learned very much from having this German wife.
What
Okay,
else?
I do. Okay, listen, listeners, I want you to know I was not prepped for this question. I gave two very good examples, and now I'm being asked for even more examples. Listen, I think there's a lot of things about Germany, about Germans that I really appreciate. And I really like, I'm gonna say it, I really like having this German wife. Was that a good answer?
Yeah, that's very good. Okay,
So
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 you make a point here.
just the house shoes and
Okay.
asparagus.
Mm, okay.
We do make spätzle here at the house now. That
Oh.
seems kind of, we make it. I'm not talking about this dried spätzle that you buy in a bag and it's like hard
Mhm.
noodles. I'm talking about we make it.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what do you don't like? That was the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
What is it called
No, you said it right.
in
We
English?
say it the same thing. We just say it's pronounced less German sounding. But yeah, bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. On something else you don't like about the Germans?
Okay. This is not about the
Please.
Germans, but I will say, as an American
Mhm.
coming to your lovely country with your lovely people, I will say it's very difficult language. You guys,
Yeah.
listen, Dirty DOS, can we just drop it? Could you all do me a favor? Because it's the thing, right, where I immediately, the first time I came over, and Katrin and I have been together for a very long time now. Very first time I came over, I went to order Frühstück at a little cafe, and I said, please, to Katrin, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I will order. I went in and I ordered, and the guy repeated back to me, something in German. And then I said, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I don't understand. And then he was from Brooklyn
Oh.
and no accent. This was in Berlin. But then, since then, anytime if I order a coffee, if I order cake, and I will really say it, right? Everybody switches to English. They're helping me. It makes it very difficult to get better at speaking German, but I'm trying. I'll get better.
Yeah.
But it's a tough
Okay.
language.
Yeah, it's a
language.
very tough language, and I'm very happy that I don't have to learn it as not my mother's tongue.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's
Okay.
it, though.
Okay.
That's it.
Only
So
the
bureaucracy. Only bureaucracy and the articles. Other than that, everything is perfect. I like all Germans. And yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, thank you, Mike, that you were my guest. It was so lovely having you. And I will put all the links in the show notes about your website, your program, your book, your Instagram free book. Everyone can download. And I say thank you so much for your time. Yeah, and we say now bye to the audience.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Let me say that first. I want to say thank you so much. And it was good to get to hang out a little bit and talk about sketchbooks, and most importantly, get to talk about my German wife.
Yeah, thank you. And
thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Goodbye, everybody.
Dear Mike, thank you for being my guest and taking so much time to answer my questions today. Alle Infos zu Mike findest du noch einmal in der Folgenbeschreibung. Und wenn dir diese Folge gefallen hat, dann drück jetzt auf den Abonnieren-Button in deiner Podcast-App. So verpasst du keine Folge mehr. Und wenn du schon dabei bist, dann gib dem Podcast bitte gern 5 Sterne, wenn du ihn magst. Bei Apple und Spotify dauert das auch nur 3 Sekunden. Und ich sage das so, weil viele das vergessen. Also die meisten abonnieren, aber sie vergessen die 5 Sterne zu drücken. Und dabei ist das super wichtig für den Podcaster und auch für den Podcast. Du willst noch mehr Input vom kreativen Flow und über Aktionen und Gewinnspiele informiert werden, dann melde dich doch zu meinem Flow Newsletter an. Den Link findest du auch in den Shownotes und hier findest du auch den Link zu unserem Online-Kreativstammtisch und zu dem Ausflug in die Niederlande im September, bei dem du jetzt noch teilnehmen kannst, wenn du ein Ticket löst. Ich wünsche dir jetzt eine kreative Woche und sage Tschüss, bis zum nächsten Mal, deine Roberta und You don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. Bob Ross.
Sonst nicht.